must have done that.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it. I am doing it. So I'm trying to wean myself. Work up to it, build up my calluses. So I'm over there at the garden, at the memorial garden. I'm just about ready to leave. So I get a text from this old friend of mine, David Giardina, who's a musician. He's a great guitar player. He says, I'm at Rocky Hill doing a Irish program. Stop over. So I'm like, I'm all like,
that's the third one in 3
but I had a
days
green
then.
shirt on. And so I actually went over there, and of course, we haven't seen each other, like I said, in years. He's up there.
For the seniors?
He's up,
For the lunch or
yeah,
something?
the place was packed.
Wasn't set.
They had just finished lunch,
Yeah.
and he was just singing Irish to me.
So she won't be here.
So I went up, he asked me to come up, and I sang half a dozen minutes. It was fun. It was my first,
The new job treating.
first foray into that room.
Doing
with all
that,
the-
now we hired
like
a
a
new
sound
guy,
system, the
engineer,
mics.
so that's taking a lot
Do you mean the
You know.
cafe, the lunchroom where they
off my plate, which is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, all the doors were open. You know, John Murphy was there.
He was
doing
South
sound.
Windsor.
So, you know, I was
and
talking
a
to
few
him
other
about
times
it.
prior to that.
You know, it's a nice
He
great room.
studies
Yeah,
everything.
a lot of great, like, technical equipment.
really.
Like, he mixes from his
He's also,
iPad,
he'd be somebody who
which is great.
can kill somebody with those sound.
No, you go by this.
Exactly.
We miss it. See, we miss it.
All right, I think we can start our meeting.
Victor.
Yeah, Victor won't be coming.
Victor's not coming?
Yeah.
No,
Craig.
Craig.
No Craig. No Bob. He said he was gonna try and come back, but I guess not.
I think we can start and then.
Have to have a little talk with him. Cancel the show.
I'd like to call the Town of Rocky Hill Planning Implementation Committee special meeting to order, March 16, 2022. I see a lot of new faces, so, you know, maybe we just do introduction so we know who we are. I'm Dimple Desai, Chairman of P&Z.
Kim Ritchie, Town Planner and Zoning Enforcement.
Ed Chicarello, Walk Bike Rocky Hill.
Sandy Kelly, the Inland Wetlands Commission.
Melissa Hicks, Human Services for the Town of Rocky Hill.
Ellie Knapp, Recording Secretary.
Ray Carpentino, Economic Development. John Mayer, Town Manager at Rocky Hill.
Steve Soplak, engineering.
Kathleen Doyle, resident. I live over on the west side of town.
Elaine Francesco. I like to write, so.
Are you from Rocky Hill or?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
And Dimple, I'd just like to introduce Sonia from Sonic, the Sonic Group. They will be our part-time grant consultant, talking to every department in town and developing a needs assessment based on what did each department personnel explain are their priorities, and then seek funding for and coordinate those projects and seek funding.
Okay.
And I think you just wanted to show up and listen.
Yes, that's where I'm trying to get as much information as I can, and I'll be seeking, we have a way that will gather information from town employees plus town residents. That will be open access, so that more information I have, the better I can align needs to funding. So no idea is off the table in terms of funding. That you can fund so many different things with creative ways, so I'm looking forward to hearing all about the synergies, especially around walkways. And so that's why
All right.
thank you for having me.
Can you give some background as to where else, which other towns you have worked with and the variety of grants that you are familiar with?
Oh goodness, okay, so right now I'm working with the town of Newington, and I'm working on a range of grants from fire department through the library, through infrastructure grants, the RAISE grant, all different kinds of economic development,
That's not.
Kinetic Humanities grant. We're looking at putting together a historical loop. Right now we have a planning grant for that. We have equipment grants out for police and fire. So it runs the gamut. Educational grants for schools, all different things, recreational grants that we're looking at. You know, construction grants, cleanup grants, I am working on a whole bunch of different ones.
So I can
So
see
there's a
what-
lot of synergies with what you have here as well.
Yeah. I can see all our projects getting funded. That's
Yeah,
good.
sure.
As long as they write the grants and administer them, right?
Before,
But that's what we've been retained to do, kind of both, research, assess, write, and then post-grant administration. So wherever you are in the stage, if there's some things that are going on right now that you need help with reporting, evaluating, putting together qualitative reports, we can help with that. And that, will hopefully offload some of the work so you can do some other stuff. So, and then the meeting with the funders, meeting with program officers, setting those goals, putting those together as well. So everything pre, during, and post.
can you please introduce yourself and just,
Yes, I'm Saima, and I'm working with Ed on a couple of other commissions, and we're volunteering together at the Wood Pantry Garden.
okay.
So I saw that on Facebook, he said that we are having this meeting, so I just came to support him and to check out.
All right, welcome.
Yeah, these are ones.
Anissa?
You got a supporter. Good job, man.
Anissa?
You're bringing a crew, huh?
Thanks.
Dimple, Sonia came highly recommended from Newington,
Okay,
and Ray and I met with her, and the rest is history.
all right, yeah, I mean,
But no,
I
she-
worked in my previous life, a lot of grants and stuff.
Oh, good, that's,
Here, so we'll see. You
Oh.
were trying to get a name?
Anissa?
A-N-I-S-A?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Welcome.
yes.
I just wanted to ask, maybe you said it already, but what's the relationship, Sonia? Is she paid staff? Is there a certain amount of time? What's the relationship?
John, you wanna?
Well, she's doing an assessment of the town, and the plan is for her to be an assistant grants writer with Ray, and the town would pay a fee, and would probably take her on for a year. And
I have a partner, there's two of us, yes.
Two of
he's
them,
a
too.
director.
it's
Sonic group.
yeah, so there's
Good.
another person.
Nice.
Just
Okay.
so they play off of each other's strengths when they do a grant.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
What's your
Yep.
dollar value right now? I think it was, how many millions?
How many that we raised?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, over my lifetime? A lot. Like 20 million, 30 million, somewhere around there. So, yeah, I've been writing grants for 30 years, so it adds up. The best ones are the federal grants in terms of trail grants. There's a couple million there, cleanup grants, a couple million there, NSF grants, a couple million there. So over the time. And then my partner, Nick, he's raised a lot of money too. I think he's a lot younger than me, but I think he's at like 6-7 million in education grants and fundraising and sponsorship.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the public in general? Yes.
Yes, I live over on the west side of town, like I said, over by Cold Spring, Century Hills area, West Hill School. I'm a regular walker, and that area is full of people who walk in that area. Singles, couples, children, etc., pets. The lack of sidewalks is bad. There is nothing safe. There's people who speed on the Cold Spring Road. I've asked for 3 years now to either have a crosswalk put in at the Century Hill or Cold Spring Road. You have to go from the sidewalk on the north side to the sidewalk on the south side, across 4 lanes. There's no stop signs, don't meet the metrics. Although on France Street, they don't meet the metrics, but there's 2. There's not even a crosswalk. So I'm very glad to hear that you are addressing some of these issues. Hopefully there'll be some more concerted effort to putting sidewalks on the west side of town.
Are you talking about the Cold Springs Road area?
Cold Spring
Cold
has
Spring Road.
sidewalks end to end.
You had a big area between Cold Springs and West Hill,
Yeah.
so.
And also, well, the town now has that property on New Road, it would be nice to have a sidewalk put on that property. I asked about that and I was told that was an impossibility.
Yeah, but
On the property, yeah.
Hmm?
there's a few
On
other things
property.
that have to occur before we get to that.
But, you know, it's
Down the
Abutting,
road.
yeah.
something to think about
Yeah.
in the future. That'd be very good to have. You know, we're trying to promote walking in town. We put some great sidewalks in on Silas Dean. I'd like to keep that encouraging on the other side of town.
So-
He's also from the same area,
Okay.
he agrees.
You concur with,
Century is a must.
yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
I would just like to see more bike paths. I'm a biker, so it would be nice to have safety, you know, especially for the kids. They don't have very many places to go to bike, a safe place, so.
Hmm.
I would like to see that.
I received a call from a woman who's, she gave me her number, she's on the west side of town. She lives near Maxwell Park.
Okay.
And she saw the agenda, she signed up for a few agendas online through the town website. And, she would like sidewalks at his farm. And
That's been identified.
in that area.
And where did you say?
His
Hayes.
farm.
Oh, hey.
That's,
Yeah.
that's what we talk low hanging fruit, that's a low hanging fruit that we can do.
Yeah.
For any of these things, I don't know. I
Can
mean,
we-
we
can
can talk
we-
to
yeah,
that when
can
we
we
get to
go-
sidewalks.
yeah, so-
Yeah, let's
so
talk to
let's-
Well,
sidewalks.
that, I figured it was
Yep.
public, so I
Yeah.
figured
Yep.
I'd put that up.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to discussion on complete streets. First item is road diet.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you want to go in order or just a general discussion or whatever.
Yeah, I think what I want to do is limit this, meeting to hour and a half, because we know we
I'd
can
go
go
for an
on.
hour.
Yeah, because we can go on forever
Yeah.
and ever, so let's focus. I want to
Yeah.
have focus and also want to make sure that we get out at least one item today to focus on, and like as you said, if it's a low-hanging fruit, let's
Yes.
start addressing.
So for road diets, I'm not sure where we're looking at, but most of the areas that we consider road diet would be state roads. So we basically have no jurisdiction.
But Steve, isn't the Highway Department of Transportation looking at Silas Dean
Now, with that said, yes, there was a rumor,
months ago?
that gentleman called me and says, was asking some very general questions, he's from the DOT, and he's saying they're investigating, studying, Silas Dean for road diet. That doesn't mean they're gonna do it, but at least it's on their mind. For our roads in general, I mean, our standard is a 30-foot road. We've been saying for years why, but we do allow parking on the road, so if we reduce the width, then you gotta eliminate the parking on the road or cause an issue. Right now, if we go start narrowing roads, which we can, it becomes a drainage nightmare. Because all the structures are set at 30 feet opposite each other, so if you pull it in, say 2 feet on each side, now every catch basin's recessed and it becomes a nightmare to plow and maintain in the winter. So it can become a safety hazard in the winter. Or you can pull in one side 4 feet, leave the other, and then you'd have to put all the catch basins down one side of the road.
Could we explain what a road diet is
Yeah.
before we get into, because I just,
Oh, sorry.
I know the
we're-
look on the face.
I know.
We're not gonna feed them anymore?
That's good.
No.
It would be narrowing the roads.
Or not necessarily narrowing it or
No, like
reconfiguring.
Silas Dean, they want to reduce it from 4 lanes to 3 lanes.
Right. So what they do is they put,
Despite the amount of traffic going in there, I think that'd be workable.
well, it would be, the third lane would be the alternating direction, also known as a chicken lane or suicide lane. So I think there's one now.
There's one in Weathersfield. There's
No,
one
I
in
think we
part
have
of
that
Weathersfield,
alternating
but
lane,
it's-
don't we? Right opposite the.
They don't want it necessarily, they don't want it.
Physical therapist, I think, has one out front in McDonald's.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it's a
What-
kind of new speeds.
What were you saying, Kim? They didn't want, what, you were just trying to say something that,
What, about reconfiguring?
yeah.
Yeah. You take, essentially you're taking a 4-lane, in the area of a 4-lane road, you would take and reconfigure, maybe reduce the width of a lane, and maybe create a dual left turn lane. You don't wanna call it a suicide lane, because there are no suicides there, so.
That's what I call it chicken lane. They call it, even in the video you watched
Yeah.
today, they're calling it suicide lane.
And then possibly include a bikeway in that same area, so you're reconfiguring a pavement.
Same amount of pavement in general, that sometimes we'll do, for lack of, so if this is your road now, they might put parking, like you see in West Hartford, if you ever go to West Hartford, there's parking on the road, so they'll have a bump, they'll create a bump out and put parking.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So they kinda take away a portion of the lane, the standard lane is 12 feet, parking stalls like 9.
Okay.
So that leaves you 3 feet, and if you can shrink up 2 more lanes or a lane and make the alternating lane, then you can put a bike lane, which is about 4 feet.
And you're typically doing a road diet for safety reasons, if there's a major safety concern, to reduce speeds. It also helps, believe it or not, with economic development, when you reduce speeds, create a safer area, you can create bike lanes, what have you. And that's the thing that when we were discussing road diets, we were talking about areas that we see this fitting in, and as Steve said, we see it fitting in, unfortunately, in state roads. So we in the town would obviously have to get a little higher,
Yeah.
a higher power to
And the state
try to get
Yeah.
assistance to do that through either state rep or state.
They're pretty rigid with their design criteria, and that also comes from federal highway. And there's a reason a 12-foot lane is not a 10-foot or 9-foot lane. There's reasons that there's certain geometry for design for safety because of speed. And that's the way it's been, but now there's a push to try and, I'm not saying do away with cars, but get more pedestrian friendly, more bike friendly, do a reliance on cars, more public transportation, so, but it'd have to come from them. I mean, that was a question, we actually ran a, what do you call it? Webinar, I guess?
Webinar, right here.
About complete streets and road diets, and that was a question that came up, and they said, no, DOT, it's 12-foot lanes, they do not endorse, reducing that.
So I think what we can do is maybe, at least for our internal roads, we can identify, where we have speeding issues and things like that, and maybe have bike, lanes. So indirectly, I mean, we are reducing by providing bikes, but, and not physically reducing the lane.
Right.
So something like that, and let people get used to that type of,
Yeah, we tried to do something similar to that once on Branch Street, and we reduced the lane, I say reduce the lane width, it was still, we have 15 feet of pavement each side of the center line, but we painted the lines narrower at 10 feet versus 12 to give the illusion, and, it works for a bit.
Yeah, so I
But
mean.
people get used to it, it's just like signs,
Yeah.
eventually they just, okay.
And again, I think we'll have to work with DOT, but for the Silas Dean Highway, that's one of my biggest problems. It's like, people are just driving by.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a highway, so you can't fault anybody for not driving, at 10 miles an hour. But I think we have to, if we don't take this on our own, DOT is not going to do anything.
Right.
So we have to start addressing, now that we have Ames, and the project would be up sometime, I think we have to start thinking in that terms and say, bring things closer rather than pushing everything out, and roadways are out and parking is out there, on the sides. I mean, we have to change, think that, we have to start thinking different.
Traffic calming, the old traffic calming.
Right. I mean,
elements,
Bristol
like
has
bump
done.
outs and just parking, even pavement markings will help slow down traffic.
Right. So I think we have to start thinking of those things, and maybe what we do is, start talking to DOT about parallel, parking and things like that, or, cross.
Even if it's just a bus pull-off.
Yeah.
Right.
CT Transit bus pull-off, but I mean, this all falls under complete streets, which is, I guess, the main topic of discussion. But,
So I think we talked enough on road diet, so we'll build on that concept, Any other comments on road diet? Yeah.
I just want to say that sometimes what they'll do, like West Hartford did this, is that they'll take a road and they'll, put cones along it, and so to prevent people from using the whole road, and they'll do an experiment, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly.
to see if it works, because sometimes maybe it won't work. And if you go on Main Street in Hartford, or Weathersfield Avenue in Hartford, you can see what they did recently too. By Cole Park, you have a whole bunch of bollards, and now they made a nice bike lane, so.
We did have, years ago, a plan to put a median down the South Highway, planted and all that, and the business owners didn't want it, because now you cut off their access in theory. Now you have to maybe go off and turn, make a U-turn, kind of come back. So not, even when we're doing the phase one of the streetscape, we were showing some medians.
Yeah, even mountable medians.
Yeah, so you could go over, and no way did they want it, not at all. So, I mean, it's just not, what we want, but
And of course,
that's a business quarter, so yeah, you have to kind of please them too.
do you recall the roundabout as well?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
thought
saw that picture.
I thought that was beautiful. I mean, I don't know where that's going, if that's dead or not.
It took up a lot of property.
That roundabout is a huge amount after the.
It took up a lot of private property.
Really?
Yeah, and because of the traffic volume on the road, it has to be a 2-lane roundabout, not a 1-lane.
Yeah.
Because it's over 20,000 ADT. Speaking of which, the Route 3 is getting to that number too.
Mhm.
They spoke about roundabouts in the Taiwan Route 3 study.
Right.
Route 3's corridor study
Mhm.
at Brook and
Mhm.
Henkel. They talked about a roundabout there as well.
And they also looked at doing.
And that was primarily to prevent truck traffic from going down to
It was a
the east.
physical division
Yes.
between commercial and
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah, they talk about that in that study.
They also had some auxiliary
Forgot about
roads
that.
going for private properties. So,
All right.
and a traffic circle on French Street, I think they showed, if I recall right.
France?
That was before somebody put up your stop sign to talk about.
All right, let's move on to sidewalks. I think we touched upon what I think of your map.
So-
And,
I have our overall map with me.
Now, what's the date on that?
Well,
I have a 2021 here.
this is a 2021,
have a
and this
small
is
version.
what was existing, what we've done in the last 20 years, and areas that we're looking at going.
The one you sent out was February, yeah.
so if you look at Century Hills area, right, where,
Well, we're saying Cold Spring, and there's a sidewalk end to end on Cold Spring.
okay, so,
There is some on Century Hills, it's private property though, it's privately owned by the condominiums. It
Okay.
does not loop all the way around.
on the opposite side.
Century Hills Drive, does it?
Century Hills Drive has some on the western loop. It goes roughly from Woodfield Crossing to Skyview, and after that, there is none.
Yeah, there's a lot of walkers over there.
I know there's not a
A
lot.
lot of walkers, yeah.
And that's, I know I heard it from
That could
others
be
in that area.
Somewhat of a road diet. I don't know how we do
I
that.
think there's also.
60 catch basins on that road.
And there's also a site distance issue as well, I think,
Whereabouts?
think,
That's pretty clear on that road.
where, what is the street right across Century Hill?
Well, Woodland, Woodfield Crossing, Woodfield,
No, that's
Yeah.
a 3-way stop.
are you talking,
I think, right, and after that 4-way stop, if you go further down towards,
What are you looking at? Oh, this place is kind of funny. Oh, I know where
are
it
you
is.
talking,
Where are you looking? This is Century Hills Drive right here.
yeah, are you talking here?
up here, like coming up,
Oh, when you go,
when you
go
go,
10 round.
when you
You're
go
going
up,
out.
yeah.
Oh, this is Century Hills over here. We're talking
Okay,
Century
now
Hills over
we're
here.
in one area.
So this is Century
This is
Hills.
Woodfield Crossing.
Yep.
in
River
the.
Crossing is at the end of Cold Spring Road.
Century Hills loops around, about a mile and a half around. It's gotta be
I think
right
it's somewhere
there.
here, right,
We got a four-way stop sign there.
yep.
Sometimes
And
there's
then when you come up,
vegetation,
yeah.
near Highland, sometimes there's vegetation.
You might be talking where Mrs. Doyle's talking about, right here at the end of this, right here.
Cause I
But
remember.
I mean, the
there
geometry,
were-
that was actually a state project, so they had to meet all kinds of rigid criteria for design.
No, it's usually vegetation on the.
Yeah, it's probably
Vegetation on Highland, and then overhanging the sidewalk further down on Cold Spring between the Bank of America and the other bank. The retirement.
So it seemed like they have, it's already there, right?
But not on
We
Century
have-
Hill.
right,
on
not
Highland.
on-
There is no
Right.
sidewalk
Yeah.
around the loop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple, just to clarify our purpose right now, are we gonna talk about all of the sidewalks right now tonight? Or will we talk about the one going down to the river? Or do-
I think we
are
can,
gonna talk?
we can talk about the river as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to see where, because they raised that
Sure.
concern, just
Yeah.
wanted to see where things are.
So just to give you a guesstimate,
Yeah.
to put a sidewalk around Century Hill Drive would be about $500,000. So, and then going back to sidewalks, we use LoCIP funds, which are state funds. And we have about $100,000 a year to do, so it'd have to be funded.
Yep.
And the LoCIP funds, I'm getting to the point, I really don't care for them.
So
Because
isn't it-
once you get over $50,000, you have to do CHRO.
Yeah.
Now,
Can you define these acronyms?
okay,
Most
so
of us don't
LoCIP
know what they
is
stand
a
for.
local capital improvement, sorry, it's state funding, it's grant, every town gets some. Sometimes get more than others, we get around 100,000, well, I'm just gonna say round number.
LoCIP is state funds.
LoCIP,
Yep.
local capital improvement program.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's about we get about $100,000 a year that we use to the sidewalks. CHRO is, I don't know what they are,
Commission on Human Rights and Opportunity.
yeah.
They fund sidewalks?
No,
No.
I thought they
but
were
they,
major complaints.
they have requirements for funding, whether it be small business, minority business, all these different criteria.
If you get state money.
If you
Okay.
get state money, so if I go over $500,000,
50.
$50,000, it kicks in on a restoration for a new project, I think it's a little higher. No, check that, that's prevailing wage. So $50,000, no matter who I hire, they have to fill out this form to say that they're going to try and use a minority business owner, a small business owner, all these other things. Well, most of the sidewalk guys are already small business owners, they're an owner and like 3 people. So,
So we don't have a
the
problem.
threshold the threshold needs to go higher, because the simple form that I debated the guy at the state, it's 26 pages long. What contract wants to fill out that 26-page form to go do $50,000 worth of work? It's not worth their time. Now, maybe if you're a painter, because it applies to all trades.
The
That's a
one
big-
form
that's a-
applies to all trades?
Well, the threshold, $50,000.
Oh, the threshold.
Yeah, the dollar value will trigger
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other red tape and requirements that contracts that may
Yeah.
not be willing to bid on,
So the
It's
first
better
year,
if we go with different funding sources.
yes. So the first year we had to do this, they had this huge seminar, many nights, many opportunities to go, and I asked that question, so they changed the threshold for one time only. And when I brought that point up, how many of these small businesses are just a mom and pop run operation, especially in the construction field, they said, oh, we didn't think of that. So I changed the threshold for 1 year, and that was it.
And that's done. It's back to the.
Oh, yeah, that was in
That's a long time
2016,
ago.
I think. So it becomes troublesome. I know when we did a little bit larger project, about 700,000 contract we got, it was a small, he met all the criteria, but he still had to try and farm out that's the other thing, you have to farm out 25%. So here you're mom and pop, 4 people, and you've got to try and farm out 25% of your work.
That's good. That
It took them
explains
2
it.
years to get the okay, because they have to review your 26-page form and application, and they have to okay it. It took 2 years, so in that 2 years, we had to hold 2% on top of his regular retainage. So, it's a tough law.
All right, so,
The question on the townwide sidewalks, are there sidewalks scheduled for this year?
Right now,
To be installed and built?
right now, we haven't bid anything. We have our contract from last year.
But the focus is on Elm Street,
Well,
because that's state money.
yeah, that's not gonna happen this year though, because we still gotta have their reviews and their sign-offs, because it's on a state road, state funds, the whole 9 yards. Elm Street, probably go next year, where we have other funds, not LOTSIP, or LOSIP, excuse me, that we might be able to do some other areas. One area that Kim was just talking about is Hayes Road. If you look, you might have the sketch there. You can see it's almost a complete loop, except like one area.
You gotta be good at reading the map, this map,
So-
because there's no, not
Look
on
at
the streets.
West Hill School. See West Hill School there?
Um,
Should be on there.
help me out.
Come up here, go over here.
West Hill School.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I see.
So,
So right here?
that sidewalk, yeah,
That's what he's talking about?
yeah, so there's a blue line there, that's the only area that needs to be done, and we complete a loop.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's an easy one. We've been talking about doing, Washington, to get you partway to the river. We might have some issues with some water lines and NBC there. There's a few other spots that I'd like to do, but again, it comes to funding. Like there's one or two pieces missing along French Street from New Road down. Some can be done, some there's a pretty severe slope and limited right-of-way, so we'd have to buy right-of-ways and build walls, so it gets expensive. And this is where the LOSIP funds wouldn't cover it. It'd have to be in the budget yearly.
How far does $100,000 go? How many feet? That doesn't go far,
It's
does
hard
it?
to say right now. I mean, we used to use $60 a foot, but I just heard today that concrete's gone up $8 a yard. So it might be more like $65, but.
And a foot of normal width, like a foot of
a
sidewalk?
4 foot width.
Linear.
4 foot.
Oh,
wide.
4 foot, like that
1
slab,
foot,
you
yeah,
see that
1
with the
foot.
seam.
Yeah.
1 foot by 4 feet wide is gonna cost you
4 feet
60 to
wide,
$65.
1 feet long.
It's a linear foot.
So $60 to do that one little bit.
So you get your 6 steps in a day.
Yeah, so 100, let's say it's $60 for, so it's 1,600 feet roughly,
Wow.
so a quarter of a mile. But when we gotta start building walls and acquiring rights of ways,
Then it gets expensive.
it gets expensive. You have to have it, you have to have an appraisal, you have to have all the title searches done. When we did Bridge on France Street, I mean, it wasn't a huge amount, and then we had to buy the right of ways. And fortunately, we had a guy in town who did the title search, and he's now retired, so I'm sure that price will go up. But that was probably another $25,000 to have all that work done. So it adds up quick.
So I'd like to, if we can, you mentioned Washington Street, I'd like to, if we could, take a look at that map, the river connection, the sidewalk study. And one of my first questions would be, the Ames right now is approved for, they said they would put a sidewalk on Pratt, right?
Depending on, they're going to put on their property.
Correct.
However, the private property, they said town will have to work and give us the right of way and all that, then they will put it on.
So I guess my question is that something we're gonna pursue this year as the Ames goes on? Or Steve, you have the sidewalk on Pratt on the south side.
Yeah,
Is that
'cause
what you intend?
The north side's a lot of slopes, sloping rates,
Yeah.
and all the utility poles. So, you have to move the utility poles, not.
So should that sidewalk instead cross the street?
See, there's already sidewalk down at the, I guess that's Brookwood Village, I think.
Does he have mine? Do you have the one that I?
This is basically the same thing. I think.
No, it's not the same thing. If you just look at the comparison, I took the Ames because they said they would build a sidewalk, and to me, that's free, right? And they said that they would build it to their entrance, so.
To their entrance or just along the frontage of the property?
Yeah, entrance.
To their entrance.
Right.
So if
It's not a
we,
condition of approval, 'cause we
No.
can't. conditioned.
No, it wasn't conditioned, but they said they would, right?
Yeah.
So
But have they
so-
engineered it?
They will.
I'm just
Right, so
asking.
what I'm saying is that if you figure how many feet that is, and then we could have the sidewalk on the, what is that, the north side, just for that one section, put a crosswalk right by their entrance, and then you can go on the other side. It just saves us some money, right, because they said they were gonna do it.
Yeah. Here's the issue I have with Pratt Street in general. We can get to Brookwood Village, that's great, but after there, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. You can't really go down Pratt Street all the way to the
No.
river, because we're right up against the brook. Belden Lane, right now as it is, I'd probably have $100,000 worth of repairs on that pipe that goes under the road.
But before we get to that, can we like come to an agreement about this section here? Do you disagree that could go like that, or are you amenable to?
It could possibly, I mean, all these blue lines were,
The aim
they
section.
need to be studied. I mean, it
Mhm.
has to be looked at, surveyed, check for grades, check for right of way, all that kind of stuff. It's possible locations. I'd rather put my time and energy into trying to go down Glastonbury Avenue.
I mean, I think that is,
Okay.
That would
that is the.
That would
priority
be
that-
number one priority.
Yes.
All the
Not
way?
Pratt Street. I could get to Washington, and then it needs to cross over, and that's where supposedly the Foundry people are gonna put the sidewalk.
So,
I'm sorry.
Please.
Well, I was gonna say, are you saying you'd rather put the town's energy into Glastonbury than Pratt and Belden?
If I could.
Yeah.
Belden,
Do you
I need.
find that is really feasible? Those frontages are awfully
It's
restrictive.
just as feasible as right now going down Pratt.
Really?
Because I got some pictures here I can show you.
Is that also in the
Pratt
plan
Street right
development
now.
too, trying to do a...
I'm sorry?
I think it's in the plan of conservation and development of establishing
Yeah.
a corridor down Glastonbury
Yeah.
Avenue
Yeah.
if possible. We
I mean,
have
that's
a
what we're trying to
conceptual
follow
plan.
here.
We have a conceptual plan, very conceptual, that BL companies did years ago when they were designing and looking at
And I think that's,
Silestein
This is Belden Lane.
We have a start.
There's nowhere to put a sidewalk. Even
Yeah,
if we
no, I-
repair that, you gotta build a bridge.
Yeah.
That's a huge change.
So it's gonna be probably $500,000 to $1 million to get a sidewalk over that brook.
I have no problem going on Glastonbury.
So that's why
It'd be
it's.
better and more direct.
Matter of fact,
Right
Right to the river?
I will tell
right
you
to
that,
town center.
you probably don't recall this, but the Historical Society many years ago stood up at the podium and we lobbied for a sidewalk down Glastonbury
Right,
Avenue.
now,
So we would support that certainly.
and I think that's the priority, because that's a direct connection. What happens is that people are walking and it gives that,
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
cohesive,
Yeah.
atmosphere going to,
but again, the
The
caveat
park.
is, do we have enough right of way? It is only 33 feet wide.
But
People
that's-
walk
Yeah.
and run, kids run for a track there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that
They
now.
do out there now.
So if I'm hearing you, we would dismiss all of Pratt Street, all of Belden
Yep.
Lane, and the study area would encompass all of Glastonbury.
That's what we're gonna be looking at.
All of
I'm-
Glastonbury Avenue?
I have no problem with that.
Or just that little,
Just,
from Belden
probably to
down
Washington.
to Washington?
To Washington, because the developer's on the hook for the remainder.
I'm sorry, did you say Belden Lane to Washington, only Belden? Lane?
Washington to, no, the center of town.
To-
Washington west to
To
Main Street.
Oh,
Yeah, the whole
Gotcha.
way.
Yeah, the whole thing,
So,
yeah.
but now that we have another, we've had some turnover, I now have another engineer, I now have a guy who can survey, so we can send him out and start this work. Say, up until, a
There's
couple
enough
months
room
ago.
to do that?
I don't know,
We don't
until we
know.
do the
I
survey.
had- I had a far out suggestion. I've got
We need them.
a suggestion,
those.
which, since we're talking about street diets and complete streets, what about making Glastonbury Avenue, giving that a street diet? Make that a one-way.
Can't, it's a state road.
it's a state road, so.
State road. You gotta get to and from the ferry.
See, that was
Yeah.
my thing.
I know, it's that piece from Washington to the ferry that would be the problem,
It's a
but otherwise if they could
two-way-
go
yeah,
down
it's a
and
two-way
around
state-
Washington,
State
you've got
thoroughfare.
one lane and a
Yeah.
bike lane and a
Remember
sidewalk.
we were talking about Ferry Park?
Yeah.
And the walks?
I don't know
mean-
if the state has any one-way roads.
Yeah, see, my thing down by the ferry, people are always walking down there.
Yep.
That curve with the houses right on
Oh,
the
yeah.
road. And it-
Literally.
I've dealt
And now
with
we have
some
a
areas
train.
where we have tunnels,
Mhm.
one-way tunnels and
Yeah.
things, so you have alternating traffic. In the summer, it might be a nightmare.
Which is kind of
But
cool
if you
idea he
had,
has.
yeah, I was just, why I woke up one morning thinking of this, I don't know. But, you know, you have a stop sign up here, but if you have, you can't see down this way, so you'd have to move the stop sign or another stop sign over in this area further to the east, and then maybe paint along that area or something. It's just an idea, and then you do one way, you know, one car goes, one car goes.
A stoplight or something, right?
Probably not a stoplight,
No?
not, they wouldn't warrant a stoplight.
You'd have to,
But,
again,
and
it
it's
has
just-
to
it's just an
be
idea.
all
It's
approved by
just
the
that
DOT
because you need
and
to
the
get
feds.
people down there safely.
Yeah, I mean, Nooks Hill Road in Cromwell, if you know, there's
Yes.
this overpass and this little
I've
tunnel
been down
road,
there, yep.
and everybody respects it. You know,
Right.
you
Because-
get
Yeah.
there, you get your warning, and you go
Yeah.
one at a time.
But they're rural, local roads, they're not a state
Right.
highway, federally funded.
Well,
And-
all
So when you have that, you have to
state.
follow state and federal guidelines.
Well, we do what we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the focus, so I think that when, what we are saying is tonight, you know,
Yeah.
if we have to decide, that's what, you know, the focus should be, and I mean,
And
spring
like-
coming, I think you can have your staff.
Well, we're gonna survey it
Yeah.
and see if we get down there. And then once you get over the railroad track, like here's a map I have just kind of pieced together of, I'm not sure, it's 263. You can see the corner of his property is literally, it's almost on the road. It's,
Who is that, Jim?
Yeah.
it might be. He's,
What's that map?
his corner of the house is literally on the
Yeah,
property
yeah,
line.
no,
That's why I'm saying.
And then you have like another
Yeah,
foot
we
to
have-
the edge of the road.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's.
He's talking about Jimmy Grover's house.
To put
It's right
a
on the
sidewalk
road.
down there, is, again, very challenging because
You may
there's no
just
right of way.
wanna delay that one because of the landfill
Yes.
project.
But to get to the actual river, once we get to the railroad tracks, it's gonna be tricky.
Mhm.
One of the thoughts we were talking about was also walking audits. And
Yep.
Walking audits.
Just saw that.
And I know that's something that obviously if there's an area of town that's of concern, we wanna make sure that, once again, under the complete streets, that walkways can be for all people, all communities, all, you know, everything. So,
It would-
kids, people with canes, wheelchairs, what have you, so.
And with ADA, I also should explain, like if we're gonna go over to, say, the Century Hills Drive. So every 200 feet, you have to have at least a 5-foot by 5-foot area for 2 wheelchairs to bypass. Driveways count, but if you're not in a neighborhood where a driveway's every 100 feet, so now you have to take that in consideration, that adds just a little to the cost. So you have to have that.
So if I could sort of summarize, but we can keep going. So I think we decided, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, that we want to make the study area all of Glastonbury Avenue from Silas Dean to Meadow Road.
Well-
Just let me finish. Because the Foundry still owns that property.
They do.
And I would suggest part of this study is to engage, I don't know if we can engage the Foundry people, but where are they now? Are they doing anything? You know, we're supposed to get a walkway along the river. The walkway along the rivers, I think that's probably still up in the air. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that private? Is it public?
It's pretty private.
Private.
Well, if it ever gets built, under that plan, it would have been a private walkway with public access.
See, I don't know.
Meaning we could use it.
Yes.
It's private.
So they own it, it's private,
own
but
it.
the
Correct.
access is public, so we could walk
They
on it at
grant
any
you
point.
permission.
Until they close it
basically.
at night or something.
Yeah.
You know.
We'd have
Right.
no say
Sure.
over the maintenance, construction.
They were talking about gating it actually
Yeah.
at nighttime,
Yeah.
I recall that.
Yep.
So I think that's something that we came to an agreement, right? On that, and then I think I would secondly add Kim's idea about Meadow Road.
Before we go there, you have the red,
The red is
So-
supposed to be built by the Foundry people, and it's
Right.
all on private property. It's all
so
gonna be
in
on
terms
their
of,
land.
in terms of what he's saying is, you know, of survey,
Mhm.
are you going to go there or we are not, we will stop at West?
I was gonna stop at Washington, cause once you get past there,
Yeah,
I'm on a right of
so-
way.
Right,
Yeah, and that's,
To go on the north
So-
side, I
so
got a
that's,
slope like this, so it's all walls.
yeah. So I
I mean,
think
if
what
you-
I'm saying is, it's not going all the way down, it will
Yeah.
stop at Washington.
Because they'd have to
True,
build it.
that
It's
makes
gonna-
sense, yeah.
It's gonna be on
yeah.
our private
Correct.
property.
So, right, so from Washington,
Yeah.
yeah, I would, yeah.
I mean, I basically had that surveyed from the plan.
But is there any word on the foundry though, in regards to them doing anything?
I think they're in a holding pattern right now. Like, last we heard, they were trying to deal with the environmental portion of the property, dealing with deep
Yeah.
and their requirements.
For a long time.
And their licensed environmental professionals and how they were gonna deal with the State Department of Environmental
Okay.
Protection.
For the longest time, it was the DOT and the railroad right away.
And they also are looking at
crossings.
revising possibly the plan. And that was the last I heard.
Because, you know, there's Tulisano Monument that's supposed to be at the bottom
The
of
park.
Glastonbury Avenue.
That whole acre is gonna be, was designed as a park.
Right, the bottom, but on the road itself,
Right, there's a
there's supposed to be a monument.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a huge issue
Yeah.
itself. I mean, that, I don't think that has been determined. I don't know if should that be in our study?
But I think that whole
I don't think
area,
so. It's all private property.
it's way out, so.
That's a
The
gesture.
foundry is
Yeah.
a foundry.
Foundry is, I
It's a
think.
private
So
entity.
you can't really invade that property.
Are they responsible for building those monuments?
I don't know. I don't know what the
I think it
monuments
was-
you're talking about.
The park.
Yeah.
We would like to see the apartments go up in development.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
on, but I don't know anything about a monument, just the
Right.
fountain, right?
No, it's a fountain with there was a brownstone or granite monument that was gonna be up on the street level with a water, we have a whole plan. with
Yeah.
the
That's what you
water-
call a monument.
That's the
That's the
monument
monument.
to
Up on the
Richard
road.
Tulisano, there, on the road itself,
On the
right.
sidewalk. You're
Right.
able to look at it when you're standing on the sidewalk at the railing.
But
That's a-
that's something they offered up, right?
Yeah.
But that's part of the
Part of the
project.
approval,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
Part
so,
of the
so I
approval,
think we really don't want to go there
leave that
because
out.
Yeah.
that's,
Okay.
we don't know what's happening there,
You just
so,
go up to it.
I
yeah.
understand.
And,
Okay.
as you probably know, it used to be 5 years, you get a 5-year extension, now it's what, 19 years?
Yeah, you got
19
the-
years.
yeah, I know.
Because of COVID.
So will the study include Washington Street then? You'll include
I-
Washington Street?
I would like to do Washington Street, and just go ahead and do it, but as I said, right now, we might have some issues with, we're already looking at Washington.
Awesome.
Yeah, we already have a sketch, so.
So if we were to try this up tonight, we could say Glastonbury and Washington and make the loop onto Old Main. Is that,
Well, we're trying for those.
That would put
Washington,
where we're
I was
at.
hoping, like I said, Washington I was hoping to do this year, but we ran into a
I mean, we
couple-
can't
So you look at
It's not
full
food.
do anything
Glastonbury,
further on
just the
Washington,
building,
because it's on their
Washington.
drawing board.
No, Washington. I'm looking at Sanistine to Washington and Washington out.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're gonna fill that, this is just a dump trucks,
Well,
really.
we don't know what's gonna happen.
And then the road.
Yeah, but they're not driving on the sidewalk.
Well,
Right.
the size of the road,
Yeah.
Is there something that has come up with the dump that you know of?
no,
No?
no, but
That
it's
could be
just
another
illogical.
10 years for all we know.
Just
They-
it's so
They can't
bad.
go through the meadows,
Yeah.
and that's the only other way to go through it.
But I think
Well,
what
that's
will
the other
happen
one.
is they'll be held responsible if there's a damage, right?
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah.
so,
I'm sorry, Dick, what did you say?
I mean, they'll be held responsible if they damage
Oh.
whatever, so.
I mean, the idea of the sidewalk is the sidewalk, it's not gonna be the streetscape
So-
kind of sidewalk, because we just don't have
Right.
the right of way.
Right.
It
So-
would be nice.
3
So we
foot or
just-
we have 4 feet? 4?
I don't know what we have, we're gonna find out. I mean, it's only 33 feet wide. I mean,
What do you need for a sidewalk?
No, how
4
much
feet
you
wide?
need? Like
I need
5
4 feet, 4 feet,
And
yeah.
then the,
And then the driveway's count as my ADA compliant.
Okay.
Will we include Kim, the idea that Kim said in regards to getting down to the ferry?
It's just an idea.
It's an idea, I don't know who we talked to at the state, they'll probably laugh at us, but we
I
can try.
I
Part of
love
the
that all the
plan.
time, I don't mind.
Kevin,
Plan
Kevin,
for the
Kevin.
town. I think we need
Why
to
not?
approach it that way.
If you don't say
Kevin,
it,
you know Kevin? Kevin,
Campbell?
is that his name? Yeah, Kevin Campbell.
Kevin Campbell?
We call him. And ask him.
I've dealt
So I
with
would,
him multiple
I would
times.
hope that we can maybe include that. What would you say, Ray?
Hey, From a planning point of view and economic development point of view, you need to look at the aims of the sidewalk, the river as one large comprehensive plan. And then each section of sidewalk is a component. And that's how it's gonna have to be funded over the course of a few years or more.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that perhaps, as Steve said, maybe number 1 is Glastonbury Avenue, Washington Street. And then if you have a second phase, then we include Pratt Street and Belden.
Could be, you know.
That could be a future.
And it needs to be approached. If we're looking for funding sources, we'll have to have a plan behind it, and this, the overall plan, and then phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
That makes sense, Dimple?
I think, you know, I mean, you can look at the traffic and all that, like traffic meaning like, you know, walking traffic and all that, and, you know, because, if you have to work on the brook,
That's
the biggest expense, right?
It's
That's,
big expense, and even
right.
if, when we do, that has to get done no matter what, because the head wall's ready to fall over. And if that goes, the whole road goes, you have a dead end there now. So that has to get sooner or later. But to build the sidewalk,
Oh, you're just talking about,
Where's, which brook are
Belden,
you
Belden,
talking
Belden,
about?
under
Belden,
Belden
okay.
Lane.
somewhere
Yeah.
around, somewhere around here.
Yeah, the wing wall and the head wall are ready to go, and it'll take the whole slope with it. It's-
So do you think that needs to be in
But to
an
do
earlier
the-
study then?
That just needs to get done. But to do a sidewalk there, I only have 15 feet on one side of the road to the brook and 19 on the other. As it is, it's almost a 2-to-1 slope. So if you're to do a traditional sidewalk and fill, you'd have to build a vertical wall and do it. So it'd probably have to be a bridge, and even at that, I don't think we can span far enough. So we'd have to put some kind of supports and pilings or something. So it's gonna be very costly to put a bridge, no matter what we do over that brook.
Okay, but that could, again, that could be the second
That could be
phase.
way
If
out
we're
down
looking
the
at
road.
the,
Yeah.
you know,
But
a
that's-
10, 20-year plan, we're not looking
Yeah.
at this year. And then I would just ask if, right now, we have on the river, if it gets built, we would have the Tolosano Park, and then you'd have a walkway that goes south. But what happens now, if I want to get to Sir Willow Park, I have to walk in the road all the way down. So if you look at my map, I included a sidewalk from the end of their walkway, but I also include the sidewalk on all of Meadow Road, because I just don't want people to walk in the same place as cars. It's just unsafe. So-
Right, well, again, that's private
That's a
property.
private, and,
Private entity, and it's been approved the way it's been approved.
The road is
But that-
private?
Part of Meadow Road is town.
That's an easement to get back there
It's
to
an
the
easement
house.
across their
For that
property.
resident, that one resident? it's an
That's
easement,
landlocked.
And for our
It's
property?
landlocked, technically landlocked.
That's,
Yeah.
never thought of that.
So Steve, are you looking at just doing this V?
yes.
So,
Yeah, so I think that's, we should focus on that,
We
'cause
might be
I
able to do that
you know, because
with
once we
your
start
sidewalk
expanding, then we lose the whole focus.
Yeah.
So, and we have to be mindful of private property, because that's, you know, going through private property, it's
Mhm.
a nightmare, and I know we are trying to work with that neighborhood at the end, trying to, I mean, relocate the whole electrical.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it's a big project.
So just to end it for me, then, we're gonna not take Ames up on their offer to build the sidewalk?
Oh, we are.
We are.
Sure, why not?
But we're not worrying about.
Yeah, but
Pratt
not all the
Street.
way down, so again,
They only have to
those
go down the front.
two,
No.
two owners,
it's,
We're right to here.
Get there.
yeah.
As Kim said,
But
it's
we'll-
not a requirement
But
for
if
the
they-
approval, but if
they-
they
They
want
appro-
to,
we'll work with them.
they
They
can
wanna
do,
do it,
they may
that's
do
what
They
it.
wanna do it.
And will we then ask the two property owners to bring it, so we can bring it to Ames's
Yeah,
entrance?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they'll have to do
that's
some-
what they would- They
They-
volunteered.
yeah.
We'll
to
assign
work
that
with
to
them.
you, Ed.
they're gonna probably have to do
I'd be
some,
happy to.
That's your assignment.
they're gonna have to study that, because
Yeah,
there's a pretty good
definitely,
slope out in
yeah.
front of those two houses.
I'm sorry?
There's a pretty good slope out there, if I do recall.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have
Okay.
to build walls, so that might, change that.
I'm all set, Dimple, thank you.
All right, so I think, that's good on the sidewalk, so we can start working on those and concentrate on those. Bikeways, I think, we have talked about bikeways, right, for a long time. I think, so Ed, do you want to?
I could speak to this, certainly.
Yeah, what's,
Yeah, so presently, there are no bike lanes in Rocky Hill. There are no bike signs in Rocky Hill, there's 0. So we're really not a bicycling town. in a way, I mean, but a lot of people ride here.
Mhm.
So in essence, we are a bicycling town. It's just that we, you know, like Weathersfield has the Heritage Way, and they have signs to bring you in and around different places. So I met with Paul Giatilio, as you see the person's name on the bottom of this map, and Luis Marrero, both big bicyclists. And I'm not a bicyclist, I do have a bike. And so I sat down with them and said, let's go, you know, the first thing we did was go over safe streets and unsafe streets, because we want everything on safest street we can. And the second thing we said was, we want to connect all the parks, all the farmers markets, everything that, you know, like Paul would say, what if I want to go buy a gallon of milk on my bike? You should be able to do that. And so that was the attempt, and that's all this is, and this was actually supported by the Park and Rec Advisory Board too. We have a letter of support from them. I showed them this and they looked at it. And we're not asking for roads to be narrowed. All this is asking for is signage. If we can get signage just to demarcate, you know, this is the route, and you can do a perimeter. We actually did the whole perimeter one time, a number of years ago. Carrie Wood was actually there flying by me. Oh my goodness, she's in shape. But we did the whole perimeter. The whole perimeter is about 15 miles.
So do you have some details as to, you know, how many signs you're looking at, how big they are? Is there an estimate, anything like that, or
No.
that hasn't been
Well,
developed?
Can we just stencil, you know, you go in so many towns, they just have a stencil.
Called Cheryl's, yeah.
On the
Well,
roadway.
that's something,
Cost a fraction.
that's something that I talked to the mayor about, and there's design criteria, and width of those and all that, and width of the road.
Right.
And if it doesn't meet that, is it a liability for us? So I told him we have to research that.
I've seen them on basic
Oh, I'm
roads
sure.
like my street. I mean, not big roads, but in other
So,
towns.
Right.
It's
So
not like they
it's
have
just-
an actual bike lane, they just put a stencil saying
unfortunate-
respect the,
right.
excuse me. Go
I
ahead.
was saying, unfortunately, we have to think that way. You know, it's all about the liability.
My town, it's on a major road, residential road, they just have the stencil,
A
not a bike
stencil.
lane.
Yeah.
And the road is pretty narrow.
Yeah.
And the people
Sure.
respect it, right?
Yeah.
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 And Sharrows are great, but to me, a sign and like a path, you know, whatever we call it, doesn't have to be called the Rocky Hill Greenway. You know, it could be called anything.
What about having this as a first step, just get people aware of bikes?
Mhm.
While we get together the signage and the money and all that, and that's definitely, get that loop and that bike route established.
Well, one thing
Just
I-
get some stencils on the street?
I think
People
what
be
we
aware.
can decide, maybe engineering looks at it and see what the requirements are, because I don't want to sacrifice safety and this and that and all that and have liability. So what happens is maybe, you know, your staff can work on that and say,
Yeah.
okay, we need 5 feet or whatever there might be, you know, to have
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
then talk about, let's do, if you want to do stencil first, you know, step by step, like, you know, you do cost benefit and see
Yeah, well, signs
what
would be
works.
cheaper in the long run, I think, than
So,
pay.
so, you know, you do those things and say, okay, let's do
Yeah.
signs, how many signs, and you address an area, right? And start putting those.
Do you have to get state permission if it's a state road?
Yes, they will not let you put it on.
Can you stencil on a state road?
No.
Not me.
And a state road, chances are you're not gonna be able to put that sign up. We tried to put up a farm-friendly sign.
We've got one on 99,
It's on
the
the
firehouse
property of the
lands.
firehouse.
So you find a way,
Try.
Steve.
Yeah.
You find a
So we
way.
did.
So you have to get a friendly
Planted it.
landowner.
So if they come by and say, our property, yeah, we planted it on our property.
So one of the ways I think that we can maybe attain grant money is that there are connections to Weathersfield here. If you look on Highland Street, the Heritage Way bike path already exists in Weathersfield there. So I rode it one day, and I went from Weathersfield, and I came into Rocky Hill. Okay, well, it's just stopped, it's gone, no more bikeway. All there was in Weathersfield was signs. There were no paintings, there was no sharrows, just signs, just said Heritage Bikeway. And the other one, of course, is the Meadows, we're going through the Meadows. And the third one is Middletown Avenue and then Charter Road. So there's 4 connections to Weathersfield. As far as
But doesn't
Cromwell,
Heritage start near the Putnam Bridge
it goes,
in
yeah.
Weathersfield?
Well, actually now
Or does it go through the meadows?
it does now. They got the state
Through the
greenway
Weathersfield.
designation, and it goes to our line now. It will go to our
Oh, I
line.
didn't think it was gonna go through the line until the state did that big, going over the Putnam Bridge into Glastonbury.
All right, so
project.
that was
That's
a-
the other end of it.
That was approved. The state, if you look up the state greenway, Weathersfield got approved to go on Elm Street, which is really the meadows to the Rocky Hill line.
It's funny how you get all these contradictory things like the state greenway, but I don't know who's, if that's DEP or what, but then you deal with.
There's another
other-
committee
yeah.
within the state.
So you have some people
DEP.
endorsing it and others are saying, no, no, no.
The Greenways
Yeah.
Commission is a unit within the DEP.
Yeah.
And they have the jurisdiction.
And deep
Because
in
doesn't
DOT,
Heritage
it's like
start and go
this,
through
not,
Plymouth Street?
Yes.
yeah.
And then I didn't realize it goes all the way up to, close to Maxwell Park at so-called end.
Yeah, with the 1868 reservoir. It's a beautiful spot. Yeah, again, it's just signage. I don't even know if you got it, we
Get a
need to
grant
make
for that?
big signs, or you make, more subtle signs.
Well,
where
the
it's
problem
not
with the subtle
overkill.
signs, you don't see them.
Well, you know more than I do about
Yeah.
that, for sure.
Well, you're not going as fast
Should
and
start
high.
that.
You're
No,
starting
you're
to
not.
see them. And you're a lower level.
Okay, so
Well,
I think,
what are the next steps?
I think that the next step would be engineering will look at it and see what the requirements are, right? That's the first.
Yeah,
step.
I gotta find out what those
Yeah.
requirements are. Well, yeah, if
And-
there's liability involved.
Right. And then maybe I think work with you guys and see, which areas we want to tackle first and where it's feasible and stuff like that, where we don't have to deal with state, then it's not an issue. So you find areas where you are eliminating state first.
What about this middle part, is it all state roads?
It's all state roads.
Oh, this is here, Gilbert?
Gilbert's not,
So you're gonna look
but
for
the
signage?
West Street is.
Orchard?
Yeah, we could do that. This,
Right where you connect to
I'm not
Weathersfield,
wild
like
about
you
this,
said.
because of the truck traffic.
Connect to
No,
Weathersfield.
this is
Yeah,
the
and you know,
Star
it-
Orchard that should
This
go.
makes sense here, maybe.
And
It's important that the sign is the correct sign. I know that right now, there's discussion as to what exactly do you put on the sign. Do you put a bicycle, do you say share the road? And I don't know what the best scenario is, but I do know a couple of people that I could, if you want to, speak with them as far as what type of sign, feel free to email me.
Yeah, so I think, that would be first, and then simultaneously you can look at and see if there is any funding out there, which. can-
Yeah, that's the key to any of
So,
this funding.
So.
Thank you.
All right, draft policy. Move on.
Actually, everything we've talked about goes towards complete streets. Everything we've been discussing leads to complete streets. Complete streets are basically streets for everything. Streets for cars, streets for buses, streets for
Pedestrians.
trains, pedestrians, bicycles, people in wheelchairs, people with canes, everything. That's what complete streets is about. This is a drafty draft, I always call it that.
The drafty draft.
A drafty draft.
Drafty draft.
And it's a start, at least, getting thoughts on paper as far as the policy for complete streets. And it's kind of piecemeal, unfortunately. We need to have some standards, because you have to report, it's an annual reporting process to the town council once it's created. And actually have performance measures. So the town of Rockyville has built X number of feet of sidewalk this year, has completed, some walk audits or traffic counts, what have you. But we have to do that. We have to do that, so that's something we need to sit down.
Can we work with Prague, because Prague may have samples, the other municipalities.
Prague has their own policy.
I mean, some of this was taken from some other towns, some of this just made up.
Okay.
But.
Rather than recreating.
Aren't some policies simpler than others? Some
Yes.
towns go really,
Yeah, like
Very
Weathersfield's
Really,
like 2
really,
pages or something.
Very, very simple.
Others are
This
like-
is kind of like, the introduction, the first page is just kind of like an introductory thing. And then we're talking about certain sections that need to be in there. And then
Weathersfield's 4
performance-
pages.
Performance measures, that's what they say what's needed now is performance measures.
you have to have performance.
Yes, you do, for reporting to the town council. But that's something that you can get, because you have a sidewalk program yearly, correct?
Well, we try. Right now, we've been doing a lot of repairs because of the funding stuff. And
And
we
some
gotta-
small connections.
A lot of small
Gaps.
connections.
But
That's
even
what we've
that,
been
I
doing.
mean-
I mean, we've been doing sidewalks every year.
But I think that could be
We're
a
taking the program.
plan,
We can- yeah,
right?
we
You
can-
you
we
are
can work- we
I
connecting.
mean, every year we have a plan
Yeah.
of doing sidewalks somewhere.
You have a plan, so that's good.
Yeah, and we can do something for, we can finalize this for the next meeting, have you even read it yet?
You just gave it to him.
Okay.
Come on.
We need all these-
What's the matter?
Motion to
The
review the
back-
draft
what was-
policy.
What was in the back was from our POCD,
POCD.
from
Oh, yeah.
Policy 3
2015.
pages,
Yeah.
and the rest is just,
That's from the
Stuff.
POCD.
pictures.
I guess.
Pictures aren't necessary.
That's basically, it's from the POCD, basically kind of furthering the complete streets policy.
So for the next meeting, the homework is to review the draft policy
That's-
Draft.
The first 3
With a
pages.
draft.
That'll be for,
with the draft.
Get a draft of the draft
The
draft.
Hanko Way Rotary.
huh?
The Hanko Way Rotary.
No?
Yeah.
Don't need that word, I think,
I do bike policies and the route
All right.
corridor
Yeah, they
study.
got crack sealing in here, Steve, you know.
Got a crack seal.
Make sure they're doing it
Sure.
right.
Well, it's in here, crack seal. Gotta do crack seal.
Kim,
All right, so I think we can, yeah.
I think the three corridor study had to include bikeway policy and recommendations, but we can
The
look at
Route
that.
3?
Yeah,
I got it, I have to look at it.
yeah, the Route 3 corridor study.
It's a video.
I even referenced it at this meeting.
Is it a video?
We did.
Is it
that
on,
the one?
It's
is it on the
online.
No, no,
YouTube
no.
channel?
Sounds
It's
like-
an old one.
What's
The
it?
Taiwan
Route 3?
study.
The
Type on, they
Yeah,
got a
it's-
video just driving down France.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be at least 10 years old, so.
However, they had
It was
to,
on France.
they had to input, they had to have a section required
Yes.
for bike.
Do you have the Route 3, do you have that digitally that you
Yeah,
can
it's on,
send me?
I think it's on the.
I don't know if
was
It might be on
the
website, yeah.
Yeah, if it's not on the website, I
it-
have the PDF.
Yeah.
The only copy.
It's gonna cost.
It's rare.
All right, so,
Can't
that's
imagine many
one.
people
So
wanting
let's
to read
keep
it.
moving, item 4, membership suggestions.
As far as people, people that, that we want to have join our group. Oh, no. You
Do
can't
we have a
leave.
list? Do we have
I
a
wasn't
list?
asking to leave.
Do we have a list of actual members?
Yeah, we have a
Posted
list,
here?
right, I mean, the people missing are Craig Bowman, but he hasn't attended on a regular basis.
But I've never seen an actual formal list.
Yes,
I think it might be on the website.
we've had it.
Okay.
Right next to the Route 3 study.
And the stuff from Pembroke.
And,
Ray has a PDF.
and Marnie, is it Marnie?
Marty Glitch?
Is she an
This guy?
alternate from Wetlands?
Yeah.
Marnie, this guy.
Marty's from Economic Development.
Economic Development.
She's chair.
No, no, I'm thinking Marnie.
Marnie
Marnie.
Liska.
Oh.
Not Marty.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, Marnie, I don't know, is she an alternate? She may not know. It wasn't,
No.
at
That's what I
our
said,
last,
let's
excuse me,
review the,
excuse-
why don't we review the membership list?
At our last meeting, Bob said, he mentioned me, and that even an alternate didn't come up, so I don't know who the alternate is.
Because,
Maybe
because I have my
that's
list of
what I'm asking.
members.
Yeah. So Marnie
And-
will-
Oh, there it was. Ed, Marty, Stidlich, Craig, Bob, Melissa, me, Ray, Kim, Sandy, Dimple, and Victor. But we
And
just
you
said a
from
bunch of other
Parks and
people.
Let's go, Ray. We're not-
Marty,
Parks and Rec
Marty
is
is
one.
on
Ray,
there.
That's
you wanna
not
put
official.
add Ray?
Is-
Cross
Ray
Ray- cross
is
Ray
on
off.
there, and then
Authorized.
Craig
No,
hasn't been
you know what I mean.
participating.
I didn't
Neither
see
have
it.
I.
No.
What?
Ed represents the Parks Advisory.
Yeah, I could, yeah.
And Marty represents Economic Development.
Marty does not show.
That doesn't get you out of it.
So Rick can be.
I think.
Marnie, you said Marnie?
Marty.
Marty.
Oh, I thought.
Well,
I have
Marty-
Marty Stiglitz, and you're
Marnie.
saying Marnie somebody else.
No, Marnie, I think, is an alternate
Yeah,
from
but
Wetlands. Marnie Liska.
She's an all.
I think so.
Getting
You'd
past-
have to check with Bob.
We're getting past that time, I think.
We're getting a little.
Yes, I
silly.
think we'll keep it short, so.
I'm just looking to see who you had on the list.
Okay.
Yep.
Is the mayor
We
technically
can,
a
we
member or
can, we
just?
can, we can talk.
She comes, I mean, she
gets
she had
involved.
attended, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if she's
couple.
technically a member or just a.
No.
No,
vice mayor.
just,
Ex officio member.
bylaws.
Did you wanna talk,
Look good.
say what you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, you know, I think when we have bylaws and all that, now we started becoming very formal, right? And then we have to advertise, we have to do this, we have to probably, you know, have a formal meetings and stuff. I think we want to keep this working group, right? So people don't have that pressure, like, you know, I have to go and I have to do this and I have to do, right? I mean, it's people, and if you see someone else wants to join and bring your ideas, right? This is a working group. We don't want to go and say, well, you have to be voted officially to get in and this and that, and right? So I mean, I'm thinking that let's keep this as informal. It's working. I mean, you know, ideas are being shared and we are working, you know, today was a productive day. So if it's working, then let's
go
right?
with it.
Yes, and I think what we will do is, and I'm committing, you know, with Kim saying, you know, let's have this regular meeting so we don't fall off.
Yeah,
So
please.
No,
I
say
think that's,
Do you
let's-
want to say
April
regularly going
6th?
with the quarterly? Does
Do you
it
wanna
say
go
in here
April 6th?
quarterly?
Are we gonna go bylaws then?
Or monthly, or?
I think,
bi-
I'm
bi-monthly?
saying, you know,
Working rules?
working rules. I mean, I think rather than official bylaws, I think,
Well, then maybe
Right.
we could change that and doctor that.
yeah. Because rather than having anything official, you know, and because it's an advisory by our POCD. Even POCD says, you know, it says, while the PIC is referred to as a committee, it is intended that this be more of a modest working group, focused on coordinating efforts and achieving results than a formal entity with board membership or other responsibilities, you know. So, we can
Because
say.
here, you've got something simple about appointment of officers,
Yeah.
where's
Right.
our, where's
Yeah.
our secretary, you know, who's the vice chairman's gonna step in if you're not here,
Right.
we didn't do all that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
so
So
I
we're-
mean, I think, and if everybody agrees, we can just keep it as informal as we have now. And whenever we come up with any recommendations, I mean, again, it's an advisory. It's not like town council has to,
Right.
has to adopt what we tell them, right?
Right.
So it's,
It's advisory, we're not
it's an
posting
advisory.
agendas on the, out there. but-
Well, we do.
So, no,
We
there-
have to
there
post
is
it.
You have to,
We do.
when the
Yeah.
working group, but you have to not put it in the
Agenda, right?
newspaper, do you?
No, because there's no public hearing.
Right.
So you don't have to.
So I agree with what you said. One thing I would, I guess, question is, you are the chairperson, and we are videotaped. Is that considered the minutes? And like if somebody wanted to, see what the actions we took tonight. So we took a few actions, right?
No, you didn't.
I think,
No, we didn't.
we didn't take any actions per
We are not
se.
approving
We're
any action.
advisory.
We are,
We made recommendations.
We
Not
didn't
even
pass
that.
any motions.
So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So if it's called a recommendation or an action, whatever it might be, how does somebody
We'll
who's
have
from the
minutes.
public know that tonight, I think we agreed upon, well, you know, we're gonna look at Washington Street, Glastonbury Avenue, and we're not gonna look at the other ones. How does somebody know that? Unless
I
they
think
watch
we
the whole
have-
We
video.
will have minutes.
we'll have minutes.
Eileen is here for.
They call Eileen, they say, what happened, Eileen?
So-
So it was a consensus
Kim,
that
you're
we
gonna
do what we did
post the
tonight.
meeting
I'm sorry.
agenda down at the town clerk's wall.
That's already done.
And then
We
at
do
the end of
that.
the meeting, Elaine's gonna do minutes that I would assume would have to get approved at the next meeting, and that'd be filed in the town clerk's office. So, and
Are
those
these
will be.
videos
so it
on the
might-
website, like other videos?
So there'll be written documentation, for sure,
Yes.
but I don't know if this is playing on the loop when you go out there and say PIC committee and then.
I think it's on the
Is it
YouTube,
on
right
the-
here,
It is,
YouTube
yeah.
channel.
So,
Yeah.
It is.
you
Yeah.
can get it that way.
Yeah, so I,
Or you can come in and see Ray.
So
to
like
that in
mo,
my head.
I guess like most commissions, like the P and Z, I have 5, maybe 10 pages of minutes. Do I wanna read those? There's a separate document, right, that says actions taken.
no actions were taken.
There's no
There won't be
actions.
action.
There won't be actions.
No, not tonight, I'm not.
But I know what you're talking
I'm talking
about,
about
the form
I'm
that
talking about
says-
for,
Yes.
for,
Those are motions.
Right.
right, so I guess what I'm looking for is for the public The public should not have to look at the entire video or read all the minutes to know that we agreed tonight on a few things.
What do you do with your Parks Advisory Committee? That's advisory.
It's, there
But
is
they
a,
charter?
there take minutes and, but there is also a short form that says whether or not we took any actions or not.
Put an executive summary up front.
Well, I think you have to file that with a 24 or 48 hours.
I think, again,
Let's
yeah.
work on it.
That you're talking
We'll work
about.
on
So
language.
it could
Yeah.
be,
I
they
mean,
open the meeting and they adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, that's what Park
Feel
and Rec
free to
is.
interrupt.
No, I was just hit me and started talking. I could put in bold letters, like, you know, on the minutes, like bold what the actions were, like you decided to look
Maybe
into
call it discussion.
striping, you know, striping the bicycle lane or whatever it was. I could make that bold.
Yeah, I mean, I
or
think
something.
one thing I'm thinking out loud is, you know, when you have, when you start having,
We're not a
Big-
charter, we're
Right.
not by charter.
Right.
We're not elected, we're not by charter, this
Yep.
is strictly a working group.
it's a working group, and,
Appointed,
you know,
appointed.
By P
yeah,
and
by
Z.
P&Z, not
Not
even
by
council.
Council.
Right, there is no, I mean, this is an informal group by POCD. I mean, there is no standing, you know, I mean, the farm, I think they have, it's by charter, right? Like farm advisory, all those
That's a
things,
All
you
the
know.
other
Committee of-
subcommittees,
All the
yeah.
subcommittees.
The subcommittees.
This is totally
not
different.
subcommittee of any.
Yeah, and again, I think what I'm saying is, when you start saying, okay, PIC meeting minutes should be like this, P&Z meeting minutes should be like this, wetland should be like this, now we are creating a problem for her and saying, okay, different types of
Yeah.
meeting minutes, you know?
Yeah,
So-
I think, I look at the minutes a lot,
Yep,
and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we have an agenda, we have the written minutes that could be, again, 5 to 10 pages.
Can I
and
make
then-
it?
and then- Can I finish it?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
And-
This is just
and then-
clarification.
And then there's one separate page
Of actions.
of actions, and that's common. Everybody, the Park and
But
Rec does that, P&Z does
But
that.
the actions are motions, and we're not making
Yeah.
any
Take-
motions.
Correct,
emotions.
correct, but why can't we, as Ray said, their recommendations? How is it, you know, I want
your
things.
recommendation.
I think you're taking a document that uses motions,
Yes,
and now you're just transferring your recommendations.
Yes.
on the
Recommendations. We will do this, we'll look at
Where I
this, we'll
think
look
the
at
minutes
this.
are, suffices for this committee.
The
I don't
work-
think
You
you
go to
should
court
get
with
into
us.
that short form because there's really no motions being
Yeah.
made, and it's not
Yeah.
really a
It's not what we're gonna sit in a
motion-driven
courtroom
committee.
and say, here's the
Say
minutes.
it's ad hoc that comes up
It's
with some
right.
ideas,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah.
summarize
and-
it through minutes. And-
because, and that's why I'm saying, I mean, you know, we are trying to get formal now without being formal entity, you know, and that's, sometimes that can create a problem and say, okay, you know, hey, you had said this, why it's not being done, you know, or whatever.
Well, if we
So-
vote on, if we vote on our meeting dates, we'll have some, we'll have. an
We'll have a minute.
Action.
Wait,
So-
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
We need to clarify here. You're talking the 5 and 10 pages of P and Z or whatever, those are working notes.
yes.
Yes.
Minutes are a
Yes.
one-page document that say,
correct.
motion, approved, denied,
Yep,
motion.
yep.
That we can use discussion bullet points, discussion,
Yeah.
discussion, done, because we don't need the
Right.
big document.
Right.
So, right, wouldn't that be simple?
I'm sorry,
Well,
you,
no,
so,
it's-
is
You don't
that
want the
separate
working
than the
notes? You
minutes?
just
Is it
rename
separate
the
than the
minutes.
actions?
Minutes, minutes are different from working notes.
No, but I know what
Minutes
you're saying.
list
But we don't
the
have
motions.
notes.
Yeah.
The
It could
verbatim.
be-
No,
it could
that's
be-
working notes. Working
Yes.
notes
Yeah.
This is
is,
going back to Cascade.
is the many pages of
Right.
he said, she said.
Well.
But
we're
for this
gonna have
meeting,
this
it's
on
really not that
31st.
much. I mean,
Well, I'm trying to
for an
make it
hour
simpler for
meeting.
you, you know, if we don't have motions, then we don't have minutes. The only minutes would say who was present and who was absent. And then we could say
and motion
discussion
to adjourn.
items, and motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Right, that's all.
You
that-
motion to
I
adjourn?
know we said.
You know what I'm talking
I
about?
can't make a
Okay, I'm
motion.
done, you know, you decide.
I'll second
I'm
it.
gonna do what you're saying.
All right, why don't you guys figure out at staff level?
I don't think it's one
Whatever,
that we.
whatever you want.
Yes, it is.
Because I think
We
we
got
can,
working notes, we got minutes, we got motions.
We'll come up with
We
some
got that, and
language
all
and
we
we'll present it at our
we're
next
gonna
meeting
look
on
at-
April 6th. Everybody agree on the?
Can we make a motion on that?
No, we're just in agreement.
This is,
These are-
the
these
work-
are-
this is
it's
the
a
body of-
recommendation.
This is the schedule of meetings for this committee
Yeah.
for
Have to
this
have
year.
minutes.
yep.
That's it.
Yeah, there you
No
go.
motion.
She
No
does,
motion.
No,
it's
yeah,
okay,
that's
So,
it.
why can't in the minutes to say that,
we got it.
you can even vote if you wanted to?
what
committee
minutes
made,
are.
came up with the consensus to prioritize X, Y, and Z.
Can I just say,
I agree with you.
March
Yeah.
31st,
We do
we're
an
having a
economic
whole
development.
thing by Morris Boria on minutes and
Well, that's
Robert's rules and all
FOI,
that
that's
stuff
different.
for ya.
No, that's
So,
FOI.
like, you're all invited.
So,
We're starting to spend more time on this than we did on.
And
On
me,
the sidewalk.
I mean, I think,
so
it's important.
staff will come up with language and we'll just say, John said, this is the dates.
yes. Let staff come up and then they'll recommend based on internal discussion and what is proper,
Yeah.
what is
Maybe we
not.
get a grant to figure out how to do this.
They heard us, so they can,
Yep.
can take it back.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
I recommend we
All in
adjourn.
favor? We didn't even vote.
No, because we recommended to adjourn.
it's a non-voting committee. It's a discussion.